Good morning, everyone. It is Sunday, July the 4th, 2021. Happy Independence Day. And the title of today's message is When the Foundations Are Destroyed. We'll be looking at Psalm chapter 11, verse 3. While we certainly want to celebrate our nation's Independence Day, we also know that we face many problems in our country. If I were to ask you this morning, what are the biggest problems facing America? I'm sure many of you would have answers to that question. Lack of faith in God, little acknowledgement of what His Word says, and too many people without a personal relationship with Jesus Christ certainly come to mind. Each of these would be a correct answer, but these aren't the only problems our country faces. And while the list would certainly be long, I believe two additional significant problems facing our nation are ignorance and apathy. Many in this country don't know what they don't know about our nation's founding, the freedoms we've been given by our governing documents, or the ways in which those freedoms are being eroded and lost more and more each day. I would also contend there are others who may know our freedoms are disappearing, but they don't care, at least not enough to do much of anything about it. Still others don't care because they are indifferent, lazy, or unconcerned because they aren't directly affected, so it doesn't matter to them. Ignorance, I don't know, and apathy, I don't care, are bad enough. But let's add one more problem to our list: evil intent. I believe there are those who know the truth about our nation's founding and freedoms, and they do care, but not with the intent of acknowledging our history or maintaining our freedoms, but with the evil intent of rewriting our history and ending our freedom. Those individuals have chosen to agree and cooperate with those who would wipe out all that America once was. Sadly, the foundational moral and ethical values that have long served as the underlying supporting structure of our country are being undermined and destroyed. As Christians and citizens of this nation, we need to be not only concerned about the things that are happening, but also willing and committed to do something about them. Some 3,000 years ago, King David asked a question recorded in Psalm chapter 11, verse 3, that is absolutely relevant for each of us living in the United States of America. And that question is this: when the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? So let's consider four foundational values that have made America a great nation under God, and what we as Christian citizens should seek to do to counter the evil that is at work in our nation. First, let's consider basic human dignity. The worth of each individual, the value of each human life, basic human dignity, all have been central ideas that have kept the foundational structure of America sound and strong. These truths are a central theme of our Declaration of Independence, as evidenced in the famous line, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal." And yet, what do we witness in America today? Unborn children, living human beings created in God's image, are viewed as inconvenient and deemed disposable. They are murdered in their mother's wombs at a rate of nearly 100 per hour in our country. We move ever closer to normalizing the denial of health care to the elderly and assisted suicide. We value the lives of animals over people, and we ignore the mistreatment and abuse of some of the most vulnerable among us because it isn't happening to us. What can the righteous do when these kinds of things are happening? Well, we can stand up, we can speak up, and show our belief in and commitment to practicing basic human dignity ourselves. Second, let's remember devotion. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines devotion as the act of dedicating something to a cause, enterprise, or activity, and the fact or state of being ardently dedicated and loyal. Devotion to God, family, and our nation has been one of the things that has made America great. Our freedom was won and our nation founded by people who openly acknowledged the sovereignty and supremacy of God. People used to get a lump in their throats singing the national anthem at a sporting event, or from singing Faith of Our Fathers at a graduation ceremony. But now, many don't even know the words to these songs, if they ever sing them at all. Many of our great institutions of higher learning were founded by Bible-based religious denominations, and with their primary purpose being the training of future ministers. Sadly, these same universities now sweep the truth about their founding under the rug and proceed to indoctrinate their students in an educational environment that forbids anything related to God, fractures the nuclear family, and fosters hate of their country. What can the righteous do when concepts like patriotism and personal responsibility become distorted or forgotten in our culture and devotion is being destroyed? Well, as Christians, we must be fully devoted to God, our families, and our country, regardless of what the world thinks of such a stance. And we must teach our children and grandchildren the importance of devotion to such things as well. Third, we must remind ourselves of the concept of duty. A strong sense of duty has been something that has set America and its citizens apart from others around the world. Duty to God, our families, our country, and to each other has been the backbone that has helped the United States stand straight and tall for nearly 250 years. And part of our duty to all of the things I just mentioned is having a strong work ethic. If you don't think having a strong work ethic is something that God expects from you and from me, then listen to Colossians chapter 3, verse 23, where it says this: whatever you do, do it from the heart as something done for the Lord. But committing to the duty of working hard is a disappearing concept in this country. More people live in the United States today who don't work than those who do. There is a prevailing sense of entitlement, not duty, that is growing and becoming more ingrained in our culture with each passing day. Through our welfare system, people are living well enough that they do not see any need to work, which only leads to more and more people relying on government assistance. When people are not required to work and allowed to become idle, nothing but trouble follows. Eventually, such a system becomes unsustainable and is doomed for failure and collapse. As Christians, as children of God, we need to work hard and set an example. We need to do our duty as Bible-believing Americans. Finally, we must recognize how uncommon common decency has become. Following and adhering to a basic standard of morality is also one of the qualities that has shaped America, but our collective sense of common decency has been undermined and radically redefined. Nearly every form of entertainment today, whether movies, television, video games, and even books and magazines, are filled with inappropriate content, coarse language, and yet they are viewed as acceptable in the eyes of the general public. Lifestyles that are contrary to traditional American values and to God's word are promoted and celebrated. Subjects that were never talked about in public are now paraded in front of children. And this is happening not only through entertainment, but also in our public schools. Our children are being educated, but about the wrong things. And it's far worse than most of us realize. As Christians, we must practice decency and morality in our private lives and our public lives if we ever want to see a return of decency in our country. The foundations of our country are being destroyed. There's no doubt about that fact. Are we, God's children, guilty of saying, I don't know, or I don't care? We may want to stick our heads in the sand and ignore what is happening all around us, but we can't do that and expect anything to improve. If we choose to be ignorant and apathetic, we are contributing to the weakening of the foundations that made America the great nation it has been, and to some extent still is. When the foundations are being destroyed, what can the righteous do? We can begin to rebuild them by taking a stand, both publicly and privately, for dignity, devotion, duty, and decency. If we as Christians don't, I can guarantee you no one else will. God bless you and America this week.